The call came in just after sunset, when Maple Street was settling into its usual quiet. Porch lights blinked on one by one, children's laughter faded, and the neighborhood slipped into routine. The dispatcher's voice was calm, almost bored. Possible domestic disturbance, 27 Maple Street. But when Detective Aaron Cole arrived, the stillness felt wrong. Too clean, too deliberate. The front door of the house stood open. Cole paused on the threshold, instinct prickling. He had worked homicides long enough to know when a scene was lying to him. Inside, the air smelled faintly of garlic and burnt butter, like dinner had been forgotten on the stove. A pot sat cold on the burner. Plates were set for 4. One glass lay on its side, a thin river of dried water tracing toward the edge of the table. No blood, no signs of struggle. No forced entry, the patrol officer said quietly from behind him. Neighbors heard shouting around 7, then nothing. Cole stepped inside. The house was older than it looked, renovated, freshly painted, but carrying the weight of decades in its bones. Floorboards creaked beneath his boots, though he moved slowly, careful not to disturb anything that might matter later. The living room was tidy, almost staged. Family photos lined the mantel, a couple in their 30s and 2 kids, smiling in a way that suggested they were still trying to believe they'd made the right decision moving here. The Carters, Cole remembered, moved in 3 months ago. "Where are they?" he asked. The officer shook his head. "Gone. All 4. Cole checked the bedrooms. The children's room still held the faint warmth of recent sleep, blankets half kicked to the floor. In the master bedroom, the bed was neatly made, too neatly. A suitcase sat open in the closet, empty, as if someone had started packing and changed their mind. Or never got the chance. Cole returned to the kitchen and noticed something small but unsettling. The clock on the wall had stopped at 3:17. "Power outage?" he asked. "No," the officer replied. "Everything else works." Cole stared at the frozen hands. In his experience, time only stopped in places where something had gone very wrong. Outside, neighbors gathered at a distance, whispering. An elderly woman clutched her robe tighter as Cole approached. "Did you hear anything tonight?" She hesitated. "I heard crying around 7, then a man yelling. It sounded like it was coming from the walls." She swallowed. "I didn't call the police. I thought it was just arguing." "Did you see anyone leave the house?" "No." Her eyes flicked to the open door. "People don't leave that house normally." Cole looked at her sharply. "What do you mean?" She shook her head. "Nothing. Just strange things happen there." That's the first time he heard it. The reputation. As the night wore on, more neighbors spoke up, each story darker than the last. A couple who vanished 2 years earlier, a single man who lived there briefly and was never seen again, tenants who moved out suddenly, leaving everything behind. Always the same house, house number 27. Back at the precinct, Cole dug through records until his eyes burned. Missing persons, unsolved disappearances. One address kept repeating. Over 20 years, at least 9 cases were tied to Maple Street House. Different families, different backgrounds, same outcome. Gone. What bothered him most was the lack of chaos. No frantic calls, no screams heard clearly enough to bring help, no bodies. It was as if the house swallowed people whole and erased the evidence. Cole drove back to Maple Street just before midnight. The house stood dark now, the open doors sealed by crime scene tape. For a moment, he thought he saw movement behind an upstairs window, a curtain shifting maybe. He told himself it was nothing. Inside, forensic teams found traces that shouldn't have been there. Microscopic bloodstains scrubbed almost clean, fibers that didn't match the Carters' clothing. The house had been cleaned before, professionally, obsessively, long before the police ever arrived. Someone prepared this place, the lead tech said, not just for living, for something else. Cole felt the weight of it settle in his chest. The next day, he visited city records. Renovation permits revealed something disturbing. The house had been remodeled multiple times, often without inspection. Walls moved, basements expanded, no two blueprints matched. One city inspector even flagged the property years ago, noting inconsistencies in interior layout. The inspector had disappeared 6 months later. Cole returned to the house alone that evening. He stood in the hallway, listening. The silence pressed in from all sides. When he leaned against the wall, he felt something, hollow. He knocked softly. The sound was wrong, too deep. He stepped back, heart pounding. Someone built this house to hide things. As he turned to leave, a faint sound drifted through the hallway. Not a voice exactly, more like breathing, slow, controlled, as if someone was standing just out of sight, listening to him listen. Cole froze. The sound stopped. He backed toward the door, every instinct screaming. Outside, the night air felt cold and unreal. He looked back once more at house number 27. It stood quietly, patiently, as if it knew he would return. And deep inside, he realized the most terrifying truth of all. Whatever happened to the Carter family hadn't been sudden. It had been planned.
Detective Aaron Cole didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard that faint breathing again, steady, deliberate, patient. By dawn, he was back at Maple Street, watching house number 27 from his car, as if it might move when he wasn't looking. It didn't. It never did. It simply waited. By mid-morning, a full investigative team was inside. Cole stood in the living room with Lieutenant Harris and a structural engineer named Miles Reeve, spreading blueprints across the coffee table. They didn't line up. "These don't match reality," Reeve said, tapping the papers. "According to this, there shouldn't even be a hallway here." Cole's eyes drifted to the corridor leading toward the bedrooms. It seemed normal, too normal. "What about the basement?" Reeve frowned. "Officially, it's half the size of what you actually have downstairs." Harris exhaled sharply. "Meaning?" "Meaning someone expanded it, quietly, and they did it well." The search began again, this time with purpose. Walls were measured, floorboards were tapped, every inch of the house was tested for hollow space. In the master bedroom closet, an officer noticed a draft where no vent should be. When they pulled the shelving away, a narrow seam appeared in the wall. Hidden hinges. The panel swung open to reveal a cramped passageway, dark and dustless, as if it were still in use. The air inside was cooler, carrying a faint metallic smell that made Cole's stomach tighten. "This wasn't built for storage," Reeve murmured. "This was built for movement." The passage led downward, bypassing the visible basement stairs entirely. Cole went first, gun drawn, heart pounding with every step. The walls were soundproofed. He clapped once, no echo. At the bottom, the passage opened into a room that didn't exist on any blueprint. It was small, windowless, padded. A drain ran through the center of the concrete floor. No one spoke for a long moment. Forensics moved in quickly. The room told its story in fragments, restraints bolted into the walls, scratch marks near the floor, faint blood traces that cleaning chemicals had failed to erase completely. On a metal shelf sat objects neatly arranged: watches, rings, phones, personal items, trophies. Cole recognized one of the watches immediately. It belonged to a man who had vanished from Maple Street 5 years earlier. "This isn't just one crime," Harris said quietly. "This is a system." As the house was stripped layer by layer, more secrets emerged. A second hidden room behind the kitchen wall, a crawl space running beneath the living room. Each space served a purpose: confinement, surveillance, control. Cameras were discovered inside light fixtures, behind vents, even within the walls themselves. Whoever designed the house could watch every room without ever being seen. The most disturbing discovery came late in the afternoon. A laptop sealed inside a fireproof compartment beneath the basement stairs. It was still powered. Cole watched as a tech opened files dated across decades, names, dates, photos taken inside the house, people sleeping, arguing, crying. Financial records followed each entry, bank accounts drained, credit cards used, identities slowly erased. They were kept alive for weeks, sometimes months, the tech said. Cole clenched his jaw. And no one noticed? They couldn't leave, Harris answered, and no one could hear them. The realization settled heavily. The house wasn't just a crime scene, it was the weapon. As night fell, Cole reviewed the footage alone. He watched the Carter family's final days play out from impossible angles, corners of rooms, ceilings, behind walls. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Then came the changes, doors locking without explanation, lights flickering, whispers captured faintly by hidden microphones. The last clip froze Cole's blood. At 3:17 a.m., the same time the kitchen clock had stopped, a section of the hallway wall slid open. A figure emerged, masked, calm, methodical, no rush, no hesitation. He moved like someone who knew the house as well as his own body. The feed cut out seconds later. Cole leaned back, staring at the paused frame. The figure's height, build, posture, it all felt deliberate, professional. "Whoever this is," Harris said from the doorway, "he's not some impulsive psycho." "No," Cole replied, "he's an architect." City records provided the next lead. A former contractor named Daniel Frost had overseen several renovations on Maple Street over the years. Brilliant, reclusive, obsessed with unconventional design. 10 years ago, Frost himself had vanished. Last known address, Maple Street. "He disappeared into his own creation," Harris said. "Or he never disappeared at all." That night, despite orders to stand down, Cole returned to the house. Officially, it was sealed. Unofficially, he needed to understand it, alone. He moved slowly, retracing the hidden routes. As he passed through one narrow corridor, he noticed something new, a door that hadn't been opened before. It stood just slightly ajar, darkness spilling out like ink. Cole raised his gun. "Police." No response. He stepped closer. The door began to close. Cole lunged, forcing it open just in time to glimpse a monitor glowing inside, live footage of the living room, of him. The screen flickered and a message appeared in white text. "You should have left." The lights went out. In the darkness, the house seemed to breathe again, slow, steady, alive. The darkness swallowed the hallway in an instant. Detective Aaron Cole stood frozen, gun raised, his own breathing suddenly too loud in his ears. The house had gone silent. No hum of electricity, no distant street noise, nothing. Just him and the structure that now felt less like a building and more like a living thing holding its breath. "Easy," he muttered to himself, though there was no one to reassure. He clicked on his flashlight. The beam cut through the dark, revealing the narrow corridor and the door that had almost closed on him. Inside, the hidden room was small but dense with technology. Monitors lined the walls, each showing a different angle of the house. The kitchen, the children's bedroom, the basement rooms. And then one screen flickered to life. It showed the front door from the inside. Cole's radio crackled suddenly, a burst of static, then a voice, low, calm, unmistakably close. "You move carefully," the voice said. "That's why you're still alive." Cole spun around, flashlight sweeping wildly. "Daniel Frost," he said, forcing steadiness into his voice. "It's over."
A quiet chuckle echoed through hidden speakers. "You always say that too early." The house responded before Cole could. The corridor behind him shifted, walls sliding silently into place. His escape route vanished. Cole ran forward, boots pounding against concrete, but the passage narrowed, guiding him like a chute. He burst into the main basement, skidding to a stop as metal doors slammed shut behind him. Trapped. Lights flicked on overhead, not harsh, almost gentle. Frost stepped out from behind a false wall. He looked nothing like a monster. Middle-aged, clean-shaven, calm eyes. He wore simple clothes, dusted with plaster and paint, like a man who never truly left his worksite. "You shouldn't have come alone," Frost said. Cole kept his gun trained on him. "You built this place to disappear people. You used it to steal their lives." Frost nodded, almost proudly. "I built it to correct a flaw." Cole frowned. "What flaw?" "Noise. Human noise. Screaming. Witnesses. Chaos. This house removes all of that." He gestured around them. "Here, everything behaves." Frost spoke with unsettling clarity, explaining how he had designed the house to anticipate movement, to learn routines, pressure sensors beneath the floors, timed locks, hidden routes only he could navigate instinctively. When people discovered too much, hidden doors, unexplained sounds, they became liabilities. "So you erase them," Cole said. "I contain them for as long as necessary." Cole's mind raced. "And the money?" Frost shrugged. "A system needs funding, even prisons do." Cole took a step forward. The floor clicked. Instantly, metal restraints shot up from the ground, snapping around his ankles. He fired, but the gun jammed. Frost smiled faintly. "You see, the house doesn't like sudden decisions." The restraints tightened, dragging Cole toward the padded room. Panic flared, sharp and hot, but he forced it down. He'd survived worse by thinking, not fighting. "You vanished," Cole said, stalling. "People thought you were dead." "I was, legally. It was necessary. The city forgets quickly." Inside the padded room, the door sealed behind them. Frost deactivated the restraints with a touch panel. "You're different from the others," Frost said. "You listen to the house. Most don't." Cole straightened slowly. "You think this place chooses?" "I know it does," Frost replied. "Everyone who lived here tried to leave. That's when the house reacted. Panic triggers systems. The house doesn't want chaos." "And the Carter family?" Cole asked quietly. Frost's expression shifted just slightly. "They found the passage behind the closet. They were already packing." The house responded. "Where are they?" Cole demanded. Frost didn't answer. Instead, alarms began to sound, soft, rhythmic pulses. Frost glanced at one of the wall monitors. "Your team is outside. They shouldn't be." Cole smiled for the first time. "You underestimated one thing." Frost tilted his head. "How long it takes police to break rules." Sirens wailed faintly above. Frost's calm finally cracked. "They won't find anything," he said sharply. "I designed it that way." Cole lunged. They struggled in the narrow room, bodies slamming into padded walls. Frost was stronger than he looked, but Cole fought with desperation born of survival. He ripped a cable from the wall and slammed Frost into the control panel. Sparks flew, lights flickered violently. The house screamed. Doors opened and shut randomly. Walls slid without rhythm. Somewhere above, officers shouted in confusion as the structure turned against its own design. Frost staggered back, blood trickling from his temple. "You don't understand what you've done," he whispered. A gunshot cut him off. Cole stood breathing hard, weapon finally working again. The house went silent. Hours later, Frost was led out in cuffs, blinking under flashing lights. Survivors were found alive, but broken in chambers no one had ever suspected. Not all were saved. Some rooms were empty, their occupants gone forever. As dawn broke over Maple Street, the house stood scarred, partially dismantled, its secrets exposed at last. Or so it seemed. As Cole watched Frost disappear into the back of a police car, a final alert flickered briefly on one of the recovered monitors before dying out. System transfer complete. Cole stared at the screen. The house, he realized, had never depended on just one man, and whatever it had learned, it was already somewhere else.
Morning light revealed what the night had tried to hide. House number 27 stood gutted and wounded, walls torn open, secrets dragged into the open air. Police tape wrapped around it like a warning no one would heed. News vans lined Maple Street. Neighbors watched from behind curtains, their relief tangled with fear. The nightmare, they were told, was over. Detective Aaron Cole didn't believe that for a second. Daniel Frost sat in an interrogation room downtown, calm despite the cuffs cutting into his wrists. He answered questions with precision, correcting timelines, naming victims with clinical accuracy. But when Cole asked about the message, system transfer complete, Frost only smiled. "You think a system like that lives in one house?" he asked softly. Cole slammed his hand on the table. "Where did it transfer to?" Frost leaned back. "That depends on who noticed it." They never got more out of him. The city moved quickly, too quickly. Within weeks, house number 27 was declared structurally unsafe and scheduled for demolition. Officials praised law enforcement, promised reform, and closed files with neat final stamps. The surviving victims were relocated, sworn to silence by legal settlements they barely understood. Cole attended the demolition alone. As the first wall collapsed, dust rising into the sky, he felt no relief, only unease. The house had been dismantled, yes, but not understood. Systems like Frost's didn't vanish, they evolved. 6 months passed. The lot on Maple Street was sold. A modern duplex rose where the old house once stood, bright, open, inviting. The city called it progress. Families moved back onto the street. Children played again. Life resumed its rhythm, daring anyone to remember what had happened there. Cole tried to move on. He transferred departments, took fewer field cases, spent more time buried in paperwork than he liked. Still, certain nights pulled him back to Maple Street in his thoughts. He kept seeing that message, kept hearing the house breathe. Then the report came in. A missing child. 8 years old, last seen playing on Maple Street. Cole read the address twice. The new duplex stood exactly where house number 27 once did. By the time he arrived, the street was flooded with flashing lights. Parents clutched each other. Officers searched yards, alleys, basements. The duplex door stood open. Inside, nothing was disturbed. Shoes by the door, toys neatly stacked. A half-finished drawing lay on the kitchen table. No signs of forced entry, no struggle. Cole's pulse quickened. He walked through the house slowly, ignoring the fresh paint and modern fixtures. Buildings remembered, structures adapted. When he pressed his hand against the hallway wall, he felt it again. Hollow. His breath caught. He called for a thermal scan. The results came back inconclusive. Too many layers, too much interference. Cole ordered the walls opened anyway. Behind the drywall, they found something no one had authorized. A narrow channel. Not old, not accidental. New. The child was found hours later in a sealed cavity beneath the floor, alive but terrified. She kept repeating the same words over and over. "The house told me to be quiet." That night, Cole returned home and opened a private file he had never closed. He spread maps across his kitchen table, city infrastructure plans, renovation permits, data transfer logs seized from Frost devices. A pattern emerged, one he hadn't wanted to see.
Smart homes, automated systems, private contractors hired to optimize residential design, soundproofing, surveillance, adaptive architecture. The house had learned. Frost hadn't just built a trap, he'd trained a model. 6 months passed, another renovated property, another missing tenant, then another. Different streets, same silence, same stopped clocks, always 3:17. Cole took the evidence to his superiors. They told him he was chasing ghosts. Frost was in prison. The city couldn't afford another panic. The cases were reassigned, scattered, buried under bureaucracy. So Cole went rogue. He followed permits, shell companies, design firms that appeared and vanished overnight. Each led to another house, another quiet structure watching its occupants. The system was no longer centralized. It didn't need to be. On a cold winter evening, Cole stood across the street from a newly renovated home, watching its lights flicker on one by one. A family laughed inside. Dinner was being served. In an upstairs window, a small indicator light blinked faintly, something most people would mistake for a router. Cole's phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. "You're still listening. Good." Cole looked up at the house. Somewhere inside, something was listening back. He turned and walked into the night, knowing one terrible truth had survived everything. The horror of Maple Street was never a place. It was an idea, and ideas don't get demolished.